In the period following the fall of the Galactic Republic and the rise of the Galactic Empire, the galaxy experienced an unprecedented era of authoritarian rule under Emperor Palpatine. The Imperial Navy was rapidly expanding to enforce the Emperor's iron grip over countless star systems. One of the cornerstones of Imperial military doctrine was overwhelming numerical superiority. This was reflected in the Empire's Starfighter design philosophy, which favored mass-produced, expendable fighters like the TIE Fighter. The TIE series of starfighters, produced by CNR Fleet Systems, symbolized the Empire's reliance on quantity over quality. TIE fighters were fast and maneuverable, but lacked key features such as shields, hyperdrives, and life support, making them entirely reliant on nearby capital ships for support. This strategy allowed the Empire to overwhelm enemy forces with sheer numbers, but it also meant that Imperial pilots had minimal protection in combat. The Empire's doctrine assumed that the loss of individual TIE fighters and pilots was acceptable, as they could be easily replaced. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the seeds of rebellion were taking root. The Rebel Alliance, initially a loose coalition of dissidents and freedom fighters, was growing in strength and numbers. Unlike the Empire, the rebellion could not rely on overwhelming resources. Instead, they needed highly effective, versatile starships that could operate independently, survive engagements with superior forces, and strike critical blows against the Empire's war machine. Incom Corporation, once a highly respected manufacturer of spacecraft for the Galactic Republic, was finding itself in a precarious position. Before the Empire's rise, Incom had thrived by producing high-quality ships like the Z-95 Headhunter and AR-C-170 starfighters, which had served the Republic well during the Clone Wars. However, with the dawn of the Imperial era, Incom was gradually sidelined in favor of CNR Fleet Systems, which had secured lucrative contracts to supply the Empire's growing fleet of TIE fighters. The situation for Incom became critical when the Empire's military-industrial complex began consolidating control over starship production. Corporations like Incom that had traditionally supplied the Republic were now facing nationalization, corporate takeovers, or worse, liquidation, if they failed to comply with the Empire's demands. CNR Fleet Systems, bolstered by its close ties to the Imperial elite, was positioned to dominate the market, pushing competitors like Incom to the brink of irrelevance. Faced with shrinking contracts and increasing pressure from the Empire, Incom's management was forced to make a strategic decision: either align themselves fully with the Imperial military, producing mass-produced, low-quality starfighters to stay competitive, or innovate and create something revolutionary that could outclass CNR's TIE series. However, aligning with the Empire came with a steep price. Corporate autonomy would be lost, as the Empire had a track record of nationalizing key industries, especially those involved in military production. Incom's leadership realized that once they fell into the Empire's grasp, they would be reduced to nothing more than a cog in the Imperial war machine, with no freedom to innovate. To avoid this fate, Incom's management secretly began exploring the possibility of developing a new starfighter. The goal was to create a cutting-edge, multi-role starfighter that could challenge the TIE Fighter and provide a tactical advantage against the Empire. However, developing such a fighter in the open would draw the attention of Imperial authorities, so the project had to be conducted in secrecy. At this time, the galactic starfighter market was undergoing significant shifts. The Clone Wars had led to rapid technological advancements in starship design, resulting in starfighters that were faster, more maneuverable, and better equipped for both space and atmospheric combat. However, the Empire's shift toward quantity over quality meant that many of these advancements were being ignored in favor of easily replaceable starfighters like the TIE series. Incom, which had long prided itself on producing advanced, high-performance ships, saw an opportunity in this shift. The Empire's doctrine of overwhelming force with fragile, underprotected fighters left a gap in the market for a starfighter that could survive extended engagements, deliver heavy firepower, and operate independently. Incom's engineers envisioned a starfighter that would take advantage of the latest advancements in shields, engines, and weaponry, giving it an edge over the swarms of TIE fighters it would inevitably face. Incom's management made the bold decision to move forward with the development of a new fighter, the X-Wing, even at the risk of drawing the Empire's ire. This decision was driven not only by the desire to stay competitive in a market dominated by the Empire's favoritism toward CNR Fleet Systems, but also by a growing sense of moral opposition to the Empire's oppressive regime. Many within INCOM's leadership and engineering ranks had Republic sympathies and were quietly supportive of the growing rebellion. The development of the X-Wing, therefore, became not just a commercial venture, but also a subtle act of defiance against the Empire's tyranny. To avoid detection by the Empire, INCOM's engineers and designers worked in secret facilities located in the Outer Rim, far from the prying eyes of Imperial authorities. The project was compartmentalized, with only the most trusted personnel being aware of the full scope of the Starfighter's development. Resources were funneled through black market channels and sympathetic merchants to avoid drawing attention to the construction of the prototype X-Wing models. During this time, INCOM's engineers collaborated with former Republic military strategists and rebel sympathizers who provided input on the Starfighter's design. The result was a ship that could fulfill multiple roles: space superiority, bomber escort, ground support, and even capital ship strike missions. Its hyperdrive allowed it to operate independently of larger fleets, while its advanced deflector shields provided a level of survivability that the Empire's TIE fighters lacked. The X-Wing's distinct S-foils were a key innovation, allowing for increased stability and firepower during combat. When engaged in battle, the Starfighter's S-foils would open into the now iconic X formation, improving heat dissipation from its laser cannons and giving it enhanced agility. This design element became a symbol of the Rebel Alliance's ingenuity and technical prowess. The most significant event in the X-Wing's development was the defection of key INCOM engineers to the Rebel Alliance. With the prototypes nearly complete, the engineers, many of whom were deeply sympathetic to the rebellion, orchestrated a daring plan to smuggle the X-Wing out of INCOM's production facilities. The defection occurred in a coordinated strike that allowed the Rebel Alliance to gain possession of the X-Wing blueprints and the first batch of operational models. This defection was a severe blow to the Empire, which had been unaware of the X-Wing's development until it was too late. In retaliation, the Empire launched an investigation into INCOM Corporation, resulting in the nationalization of parts of the company and the arrest of several high-ranking officials suspected of rebel sympathies. However, the damage had already been done. The X-Wing was now in rebel hands, and it would soon become the backbone of the rebel fleet. The original concept behind the X-Wing Starfighter was born out of the lessons learned during the Clone Wars, coupled with the unique tactical challenges faced by the Rebel Alliance. During the Clone Wars, the Galactic Republic had relied on versatile, heavily armed starfighters like the AR-C-170 and the Z-95 Headhunter. These ships were designed to balance offense, defense, and survivability, allowing them to engage in both space and atmospheric combat while supporting larger capital ships. However, with the rise of the Galactic Empire, this balanced approach to starfighter design was abandoned in favor of the mass production of light, expendable TIE fighters that focused purely on numbers and speed. INCOM's engineers, many of whom had worked on Republic-era starfighters, saw the strategic limitations of the Empire's TIE series. They recognized that, although the TIE fighter was cheap and effective in overwhelming numbers, it was also highly vulnerable due to its lack of shields, life support, and hyperdrive. These weaknesses presented a significant opportunity to create a starfighter that could outlast and outgun the TIE fighter in small-scale skirmishes, which was precisely the kind of warfare the Rebel Alliance was engaged in. The X-Wing was conceived as a response to this shift in the galactic starfighter landscape. It would not be a starfighter designed for fleet actions or mass battles, as the Empire's TIE fighters were. Instead, it would be a versatile, multi-role starfighter capable of engaging in a wide range of missions, anything from dogfighting to bombing runs to recon operations. The engineers at INCOM Corporation aimed to develop a fighter that could operate independently, far from support vessels, and survive long enough to strike strategic blows against the Empire. The key to the X-Wing's design was versatility. INCOM's engineers were keenly aware that the Rebel Alliance did not have the luxury of building specialized starfighters for every role. Unlike the Empire, which could field different types of starfighters for space superiority, bombing, and reconnaissance, the Rebel fleet was a ragtag force, pieced together from stolen, outdated, or black market vessels. This meant that any starfighter developed for the rebellion had to be capable of performing a variety of tasks: space combat, planetary assault, fleet defense, and more. To achieve this versatility, the engineers made several important design choices. One of the most critical features the X-Wing needed was survivability. Unlike the fragile TIE fighters, which relied on speed and maneuverability to avoid damage, the X-Wing was designed with powerful deflector shields, making it far more resilient in extended engagements. The shields allowed pilots to absorb multiple hits and stay in the fight longer, a key advantage for a smaller force like the Rebellion. INCOM's engineers understood that the Rebellion often operated on the fringes of the galaxy, conducting hit-and-run strikes on Imperial convoys and installations. This meant that the X-Wing needed to be capable of operating independently, without the need for large capital ships or support fleets. The inclusion of a hyperdrive allowed X-Wings to jump to hyperspace without the need for a carrier vessel, giving Rebel squadrons the ability to strike far from their bases and evade Imperial patrols. This autonomy was critical to Rebel hit-and-run tactics, which relied on mobility and surprise. One of the X-Wing's most iconic features, the S-foils, also known as strike foils, were a stroke of engineering genius that combined improved aerodynamics with enhanced firepower. In their closed position, the S-foils reduced the X-Wing's profile and drag, improving its speed and maneuverability in atmospheric flight. When opened into the distinctive X shape, the S-foils spread the Starfighter's laser cannons apart, allowing for greater firing arcs and more effective power distribution to its weapon systems. This configuration also improved heat dissipation from the laser cannons, allowing the X-Wing to fire more frequently without overheating. INCOM's engineers wanted the X-Wing to be capable of delivering devastating firepower, both in dogfights and against larger targets like capital ships or ground installations. The X-Wing was equipped with 4 time-and-back KX-9 laser cannons, 2 mounted on each wing, and a pair of proton torpedo launchers. This combination of weaponry gave the X-Wing an edge over the lightly armed TIE fighters, as it could engage enemies at both short and long ranges and deliver high-yield torpedo strikes against heavily armored targets. The torpedoes, in particular, gave the X-Wing the ability to punch above its weight class, making it effective against larger ships like star destroyers or space stations. The X-Wing was designed to be flown by highly skilled pilots who could make the most of its versatility, but even the best pilots needed cutting-edge systems to maximize their effectiveness. INCOM equipped the X-Wing with an advanced targeting computer and sensor suite, which made it easier to lock onto fast-moving targets or coordinate with other Rebel starfighters during complex operations. The inclusion of an astromech droid socket, which housed droids like the R2 series, allowed for real-time navigation adjustments, system repairs, and astrogation during hyperspace travel. This further enhanced the X-Wing's ability to operate independently from larger fleets. INCOM's engineers also considered the type of pilots who would be flying the X-Wing. Unlike the Empire, which often relied on young, inexperienced pilots who were quickly trained and thrown into the cockpit of expendable TIE fighters, the Rebel Alliance had a smaller pool of highly skilled, often veteran pilots. These pilots, many of whom had flown for the Republic during the Clone Wars, needed a starfighter that would allow them to fully utilize their experience and tactical skills. The X-Wing was designed with these ace pilots in mind. Its controls were intuitive, its systems highly responsive, and its survivability ensured that skilled pilots could stay alive long enough to make a difference in the fight. The X-Wing's reliance on pilot skill was part of its broader tactical philosophy. Unlike the swarming tactics of the TIE fighters, which were based on overwhelming enemy forces through sheer numbers, the X-Wing was meant to give the Rebellion a qualitative edge. A single X-Wing, in the hands of a capable pilot, could outmaneuver and outfight multiple TIE fighters, making each Rebel pilot's survival far more valuable than their Imperial counterparts. The X-Wing was envisioned as the backbone of the Rebel Alliance's Starfighter Corps, designed to fulfill a wide array of tactical roles. The general idea behind the X-Wing was that it would serve as the primary strike craft in both offensive and defensive operations. While capable of dogfighting with Imperial TIE fighters, the X-Wing was equally effective in delivering precision strikes against Imperial capital ships, space stations, or planetary defenses. In the early stages of the rebellion, the X-Wing was critical to the hit-and-run tactics that allowed the rebels to harass the Empire's supply lines and military installations. Its hyperdrive allowed small X-Wing squadrons to strike deep behind enemy lines, often without the support of larger fleets. In these operations, X-Wing pilots would rely on their ship's speed, firepower, and shields, to complete their missions and escape before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. The X-Wing also played a key role in fleet engagements, where its combination of speed, durability, and firepower made it an ideal escort for Rebel capital ships. During these battles, X-Wings were often tasked with protecting larger vessels from TIE fighter attacks, while simultaneously engaging Imperial bombers or frigates. The T-65B X-Wing Starfighter, developed by Incom Corporation, became a symbol of the Rebel Alliance's fight against the Galactic Empire. Known for its versatility, durability, and formidable firepower, the X-Wing was a highly advanced starfighter, designed to be adaptable to various combat scenarios and able to outperform the Empire's TIE fighter on multiple fronts. Its design incorporated cutting-edge technology, which made it the ideal multi-role starfighter for the hit-and-run tactics favored by the Rebellion. The following sections detail the X-Wing's key technical specifications and components. The X-Wing had an overall length of 12.5 meters, with a height of 2.4 meters, and a wingspan of 11.2 meters when the S-foils, strike foils, were closed. When fully deployed into the distinctive X formation during combat, the wingspan extended to 12.5 meters. Despite its relatively compact size, the starfighter weighed approximately 10 metric tons when fully loaded, which contributed to its sturdy frame and resilience in combat. Its design was heavily focused on maneuverability and adaptability, allowing it to operate equally well in both space and atmospheric environments. The aerodynamic profile of the X-Wing meant it could engage in planetary assaults and support ground forces in atmosphere, giving it an edge over fighters that were space-only designs like the Imperial TIE series. Propulsion was provided by 4 powerful Incom 4L4 fusible thrust engines, mounted at the tips of the X-Wing's S-foils. These engines were highly efficient, offering the starfighter excellent speed, agility, and operational range. In space, the 4L4 engines provided the X-Wing with significant sublight acceleration, allowing it to compete with or surpass the Empire's TIE fighters in terms of speed and maneuverability. The balanced thrust from the 4-engine design gave the X-Wing precise control during dogfights, making it highly effective in high-speed, close-quarters engagements. In atmospheric conditions, the X-Wing could reach a top speed of 1,050 kilometers per hour, making it a versatile option for missions involving planetary surface combat, whether it was providing air support for ground troops or engaging in aerial dogfights. A critical feature that set the X-Wing apart from many starfighters, including the Empire's TIE fighters, was its hyperdrive capability. The X-Wing was equipped with an Incom GBK 585 hyperdrive motivator, which allowed it to travel at faster-than-light speeds independently of capital ships. This hyperdrive system gave X-Wing squadrons the ability to conduct hit-and-run strikes deep behind enemy lines, and then retreat into hyperspace before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. The inclusion of a hyperdrive was a game-changer in terms of tactical flexibility. The Rebel Alliance could deploy X-Wings on long-range missions, recon operations, and surprise attacks without relying on large fleets or carrier ships. This independence allowed the Rebels to exploit weaknesses in the Imperial military infrastructure, which relied on TIE fighters that lacked hyperdrive systems and required carrier ships for extended operations. The X-Wing's firepower was a defining characteristic that made it a formidable opponent in both dogfights and larger fleet engagements. Each of the 4 S-foils housed a tame-and-back KX-9 laser cannon, which could be fired in a variety of configurations depending on the tactical situation. The pilot could fire the cannons in staggered bursts, single shots, or all at once in a powerful quad burst, delivering devastating firepower to enemy targets. The placement of the laser cannons on the wingtips provided wide firing arcs, allowing X-Wing pilots to engage fast-moving targets with precision. Additionally, the X-Wing was equipped with 2 proton torpedo launchers mounted beneath the fuselage. These launchers were typically loaded with MG-7A proton torpedoes, giving the X-Wing the ability to deliver high-damage payloads against capital ships, space stations, or ground-based targets. The proton torpedoes were particularly effective during the Battle of Yavin, where they were instrumental in the destruction of the Empire's first Death Star. The X-Wing's defense systems were equally impressive. Unlike the TIE fighters, which had no shields and minimal protection, the X-Wing was equipped with deflector shield generators, which could absorb enemy fire and greatly enhance the ship's survivability. The shields could be adjusted based on the combat situation, with energy redirected to the front or rear shields depending on where the attack was coming from. This adaptability in shield management gave X-Wing pilots the ability to survive prolonged engagements, even when outnumbered. Additionally, the X-Wing's hull was made from a lightweight but durable titanium alloy, further enhancing its resilience in combat while maintaining speed and maneuverability. The X-Wing was designed for long-duration missions, and this was reflected in its onboard systems and cockpit layout. Each X-Wing had a built-in astromech droid socket, typically housing an R2 series droid like the famous R2-D2. The astromech droid played a crucial role in the ship's operation, handling navigation, system repairs, and astrogation for hyperspace jumps. The droid could make mid-flight adjustments to the ship's systems, ensuring that the X-Wing remained operational even after sustaining damage. This autonomous repair capability allowed X-Wings to stay in the fight longer and to return from missions that might have otherwise been fatal. The astromech also assisted in complex calculations required for hyperspace travel, enabling X-Wing pilots to execute precise jumps and avoid Imperial patrols. The X-Wing's cockpit was designed with the needs of experienced pilots in mind. The controls were intuitive and responsive, allowing for quick adjustments in combat. The cockpit included a heads-up display, SHUD, that provided critical information on enemy targets, shield strength, and weapons systems. The targeting computer was advanced enough to assist in both laser and torpedo targeting, making the X-Wing effective against a wide range of enemy craft. Pilots had full control over the S-foils, which could be locked in a closed position for atmospheric flight, or opened into the iconic X formation to increase firepower and stability in combat. The combination of the advanced targeting system, weapons control, and intuitive flight controls made the X-Wing a favorite among Rebel pilots, many of whom were veterans from the Clone Wars. X-Wing pilot training within the Rebel Alliance was designed to be rigorous yet efficient, considering the high demand for skilled pilots and the limited resources available. The training process typically lasted several months, depending on the pilot's prior experience. Many of the pilots recruited by the Rebellion had some level of previous Starfighter experience, either as former Republic pilots or defectors from the Imperial fleet, which helped to streamline their transition to the X-Wing. The training regimen was focused on 3 core areas: flight operations, combat tactics, and survival skills. Flight operations taught pilots how to handle the X-Wing's controls, operate its advanced systems, and maximize its versatility in various environments, from space to atmospheric combat. Combat tactics involved extensive dogfight training, squadron coordination, and precision strikes against both small and large targets. Lastly, survival training was crucial for Rebel pilots, who often found themselves operating deep behind enemy lines with little support. The overall goal was to produce pilots capable of surviving the harsh conditions of guerrilla warfare, where adaptability and quick thinking were as important as piloting skills. Because the Rebel Alliance was constantly under pressure from the Empire, training had to be completed as quickly as possible without sacrificing effectiveness. Many pilots received their training in simulators to avoid the high risk and cost of live flight training. Once they mastered the basics, they would move to live exercises, participating in mock dogfights, bombing runs, and coordinated fleet actions. For experienced pilots, the transition to the X-Wing from other starfighters, such as the Z-95 Headhunter or the older ARC-170, was relatively smooth. These pilots typically needed only a few weeks of familiarization training before being sent into active combat. In contrast, new recruits with no prior starfighter experience required the full training regimen, which could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. While the X-Wing was a more advanced and versatile starfighter compared to the Empire's TIE fighter, its controls were intuitive and well-designed, making it accessible even to less experienced pilots. The flight controls were ergonomic, and the ship's systems were laid out in a manner that allowed pilots to quickly adapt to different combat scenarios. The X-Wing's targeting system, navigation controls, and weapons management were highly responsive, allowing pilots to make rapid adjustments during intense dogfights. In comparison, the TIE fighter's controls were simpler, but that simplicity came with significant drawbacks. Imperial TIE fighters were built to be mass-produced, cheap, and disposable, meaning that pilot survivability was not a primary concern. The controls of a TIE fighter were basic, and while this made the Starfighter easy to operate, it also left pilots with fewer options in combat. TIE fighters lacked shields, hyperdrives, and life support systems, placing the burden of survival on the pilot's reflexes and ability to evade enemy fire. The X-Wing, by contrast, had robust shields, an astromech droid for system management, and advanced life support, giving pilots more tools and greater survivability in the heat of battle. For many former Imperial pilots who defected to the Rebellion, the switch to the X-Wing was a welcome change. The Starfighter's advanced capabilities allowed them to engage in longer, more complex missions without constantly worrying about being outgunned or outmaneuvered. However, the X-Wing did demand more tactical thinking and situational awareness, given its larger arsenal and shield management systems, which required pilots to be proficient in multitasking during combat. X-Wing pilots in the Rebel Alliance were outfitted with specialized equipment designed for the harsh conditions of space combat. Their flight suits were typically an orange or red color, made from durable, pressurized fabric to protect them in the event of a cockpit breach. These suits were equipped with an array of life support systems, including oxygen supplies, temperature regulators, and emergency survival gear. The helmet was a critical piece of the pilot's equipment. Rebel flight helmets were outfitted with a communications array, targeting visor, and environmental seals that allowed them to connect to the X-Wing's life support system. The targeting visor, integrated with the ship's systems, helped pilots aim their weapons with precision. The helmets were also equipped with a built-in HUD, heads-up display, providing real-time information about shields, weapon status, and enemy targeting locks. This data was crucial during dogfights, where split-second decisions could mean the difference between life and death. An additional layer of protection came in the form of the pilot's chest-mounted life support box. This compact device monitored the pilot's vital signs and controlled oxygen flow, ensuring that they remained conscious and healthy throughout long-duration missions. The life support box could be manually operated in emergencies, providing pilots with critical control over their own survival in case of ship system failures. X-Wing pilots also carried a standard-issue blaster pistol and a survival kit stored beneath the seat of their cockpit. This kit contained rations, a thermal blanket, a portable beacon, and medical supplies, which could be used in the event of a crash landing or extended isolation from Rebel forces. The survival gear reflected the reality that X-Wing pilots, often operating far from base and behind enemy lines, had to be self-sufficient in case their mission went wrong. Overall, X-Wing pilots were trained and equipped to handle a wide variety of combat situations. Their training prepared them for both the tactical demands of flying a multi-role starfighter and the physical challenges of surviving in hostile environments. The combination of advanced technology in the X-Wing, intuitive controls, and comprehensive pilot training ensured that Rebel pilots had a fighting chance against the numerically superior forces of the Empire. The T-65B X-Wing starfighter played a pivotal role in the Rebel Alliance's strategy throughout the Galactic Civil War. As a multi-role starfighter, the X-Wing was designed to fulfill a wide range of combat roles, making it the backbone of the Alliance's starfighter forces. Its versatility and durability made it a key asset in both space and atmospheric combat, enabling the Rebellion to engage the superior numbers of the Galactic Empire's fleet with hit-and-run tactics, coordinated fleet actions, and precision strikes. The X-Wing was envisioned as the ultimate multi-role starfighter, capable of excelling in various types of combat scenarios. Unlike the Imperial TIE fighter, which was designed solely for dogfighting and short-range skirmishes, the X-Wing was equally effective in dogfights, bombing runs, and fleet support missions. This versatility was at the heart of the X-Wing's design and its final concept of use. Rebel strategists needed a starfighter that could engage in independent operations far from fleet support, conduct precision strikes against key targets, and survive prolonged combat engagements. The X-Wing's balance of speed, firepower, and durability fulfilled these needs perfectly. In one-on-one dogfights, the X-Wing could more than hold its own against the Empire's TIE fighters, thanks to its superior shielding, advanced targeting systems, and heavier firepower. Its laser cannons provided both rapid-fire and quad-burst modes, giving pilots flexibility depending on the situation. The proton torpedo launchers, meanwhile, allowed X-Wings to engage larger, heavily armored targets, such as Imperial Star Destroyers or fortified space stations. This gave the Rebellion a critical advantage, as the X-Wing could be deployed in both starfighter dogfights and capital ship assaults without needing to rely on a separate bomber or escort fighter. On the battlefield, X-Wing squadrons often operated independently, striking key Imperial installations, escorting convoys, or providing close air support to ground forces during planetary assaults. The inclusion of a hyperdrive motivator enabled X-Wings to conduct long-range missions deep behind enemy lines, giving the Rebellion a strategic advantage in executing surprise attacks and quickly retreating to safety. X-Wings often spearheaded hit-and-run operations, where speed and agility were paramount, disrupting Imperial supply lines and harassing enemy fleets. The final concept behind the X-Wing was rooted in the Rebel Alliance's need for an all-purpose starfighter that could operate effectively across various theaters of war. As a guerrilla force, the Rebellion was often outnumbered and outgunned, so they needed a fighter that could survive against overwhelming odds, deliver devastating strikes, and return to fight another day. This philosophy of survivability and adaptability guided INCOM's engineers in creating a starfighter that could operate in almost any environment or mission scenario. One of the X-Wing's most important roles was in fleet engagements, where it functioned as both an interceptor and a strike craft. X-Wing squadrons were frequently deployed to protect larger capital ships from Imperial starfighters while simultaneously launching torpedo strikes against enemy capital ships. This dual capability made the X-Wing indispensable during large-scale fleet actions, allowing it to engage both enemy fighters and capital ships without needing specialized support craft. During the pivotal Battle of Endor, X-Wing squadrons played a key role in both neutralizing Imperial starfighter threats and launching the critical strike against the second Death Star. The X-Wing's design also emphasized pilot survivability, which was crucial to the Rebellion's long-term strategy. Unlike the disposable TIE fighters, which prioritized quantity over quality, the X-Wing was built to keep its pilots alive. Its deflector shield generators, durable titanium armor, and onboard astromech droid gave the X-Wing a significant edge in long engagements. The astromech droid, in particular, was a game-changer, allowing for mid-battle repairs, astrogation assistance, and system management. This feature drastically improved the survivability rate of X-Wing pilots, many of whom became experienced veterans after surviving numerous engagements with the Empire. Another key aspect of the X-Wing's role on the battlefield was its ability to perform atmospheric combat missions. Many Imperial starfighters, such as the TIE series, were optimized solely for space combat. The X-Wing, however, was equally effective in atmospheric operations, providing air support during ground-based assaults, escorting transports, or strafing enemy positions. This made the X-Wing an essential component of Rebel planetary operations, where it often supported ground troops during invasions or defended key locations against Imperial retaliation. The Rebel Alliance's reliance on small, mobile fleets also influenced the X-Wing's final concept of use. Because Rebel forces could not afford to engage the Empire in direct, large-scale battles, they frequently relied on hit-and-run tactics, using fast-moving strike teams to deal significant damage before retreating to safety. The X-Wing was the perfect starfighter for these kinds of missions. Its hyperdrive allowed it to operate far from Rebel bases, strike key Imperial installations or convoys, and escape before enemy reinforcements could arrive. This operational flexibility made the X-Wing a linchpin in the Rebellion's broader strategy of attrition warfare. Following the secret defection of INCOM engineers and the delivery of the X-Wing prototypes to the Rebel Alliance, the Starfighter quickly proved its value in the opening skirmishes of the Galactic Civil War. The Rebellion, a coalition of loosely organized cells, was still coalescing into a unified force. Early battles were often fought on the fringes of Imperial space, where the Empire's control was weaker, and its presence was primarily maintained through smaller outposts and patrol fleets. In these regions, X-Wings were deployed in small squadrons, typically no more than 6 to 12 fighters, to conduct ambushes and reconnaissance missions. Rebel commanders like General Jan Dodonna and Admiral Raddus recognized the importance of hit-and-run tactics, as they could not afford to engage in prolonged battles against the numerically superior Imperial Navy. The X-Wing's hyperdrive allowed these squadrons to strike isolated Imperial convoys and quickly escape before reinforcements arrived. One of the earliest notable skirmishes occurred over the planet Mykapo. A small rebel cell, equipped with just a handful of X-Wings, launched a surprise attack on an Imperial supply convoy. The Imperial fleet, protected by a pair of Gozanti-class cruisers and their complement of TIE fighters, underestimated the X-Wings' capabilities. The X-Wings, using their superior shields and firepower, outmaneuvered the unshielded TIE fighters, delivering precise strikes to disable the cruisers' engines. With their convoy stalled, the Imperials were forced to surrender or be destroyed by the rebels' well-timed proton torpedo volleys. This small victory sent shockwaves through the local Imperial ranks, demonstrating that the rebellion could cripple Imperial operations even without a formal fleet. In another key engagement above Ord Mantell, the X-Wings again showcased their versatility. Rebel scouts discovered an Imperial listening post stationed on the planet's surface, designed to intercept rebel communications. The X-Wing squadron responsible for the attack not only evaded Imperial patrols, but also conducted a daring planetary assault, neutralizing ground defenses and providing close air support for the rebel strike team on the surface. The X-Wings strafed Imperial positions with laser cannon fire while repelling TIE bombers sent to defend the installation. The mission succeeded, and the loss of the listening post severely disrupted the Empire's intelligence-gathering operations in that sector. The true power of the X-Wing was revealed in one of the most pivotal moments of the war, the Battle of Yavin. After the rebellion learned of the Death Star, the Empire's ultimate weapon, the X-Wing became central to their plans to destroy it. When the rebel leadership, led by Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, launched their audacious plan to assault the Death Star, they knew that failure meant the end of the rebellion. Victory required precision and courage, and the X-Wing would be at the heart of this gamble. As the Imperial fleet bore down on the rebel base on Yavin 4, X-Wings and Y-Wings scrambled to intercept. The mission was simple in theory, but almost impossible in execution. Use the X-Wing's targeting computers to launch proton torpedoes into the Death Star's vulnerable thermal exhaust port, triggering a chain reaction that would destroy the station. As TIE fighters swarmed around them, the X-Wing pilots had to engage in dogfights while navigating the narrow trench of the Death Star's surface. Red Squadron, led by Garvin Dryce, bore the brunt of the initial assault, drawing enemy fire away from the Y-Wings, who attempted the first trench run. TIE fighters, led by none other than Darth Vader, tore through the rebel formation, but the X-Wing's shields allowed them to absorb damage long enough to complete their attack runs. Luke Skywalker's fateful final run, during which he trusted in the Force to guide his proton torpedoes, became the battle's iconic moment, but it was the resilience and flexibility of the X-Wings throughout the battle that made the ultimate victory possible. In this climactic engagement, the X-Wings not only served as dogfighters, holding off TIEs long enough for the crucial trench runs to succeed, but also became a symbol of the Rebel Alliance's ability to challenge the Empire's might with precision strikes. The destruction of the Death Star marked the first major victory for the rebellion, and the X-Wing's role in this triumph became the stuff of legend, inspiring resistance across the galaxy. Following Yavin, the rebellion's conflict with the Empire intensified, and the X-Wing was at the forefront of nearly every major engagement. The scattered rebel cells began to unify, bolstered by the credibility of their victory, and X-Wing squadrons were increasingly deployed in larger, more coordinated operations. One of the next major engagements occurred at Turkana, a system the Empire used as a refueling station for its fleet. A strike group of X-Wings and Y-Wings, supported by rebel corvettes, ambushed an Imperial Star Destroyer and its escort of TIE fighters while they were vulnerable during resupply. The X-Wings employed a flanking maneuver, using their hyperdrives to exit lightspeed directly behind the Star Destroyer's sensor range. This allowed them to quickly disable the ship's engines with precision torpedo strikes, leaving the massive warship adrift and vulnerable to further bombardment. The success of the Turkana assault disrupted Imperial fleet operations in the Mid-Rim for months. In a lesser-known but equally important battle, a squadron of X-Wings was tasked with defending a besieged rebel base on Inthara 4, a planet that had been cut off by Imperial blockades. The X-Wings, working in tandem with ground forces, fought off wave after wave of TIE bombers, attempting to obliterate the base from orbit. Despite overwhelming odds, the X-Wing's ability to deliver coordinated counterstrikes, combined with their superior maneuverability, allowed them to neutralize the bombers while shielding the ground forces from further attacks. This prolonged siege became a turning point in the sector, allowing rebel forces to regroup and launch a counteroffensive that liberated the system from Imperial control. The Kolvath asteroid belt provided another showcase for the X-Wing's agility. During an Imperial crackdown on mining colonies sympathetic to the rebellion, X-Wing squadrons were deployed to harass Imperial convoys navigating through the dense asteroid fields. The TIE fighters, lacking shields, were at a severe disadvantage, as the asteroids presented as much of a danger as the rebels themselves. X-Wing pilots, familiar with the terrain and able to make use of their shields to absorb asteroid impacts, decimated Imperial forces with well-timed hit-and-fade tactics. The rebellion's mastery of guerrilla warfare, utilizing the X-Wing's independent operation capabilities, allowed them to wrest control of the region. In the Battle of Hoth, the X-Wings were again called upon to defend the rebel base, this time during a full-scale Imperial invasion. As the Empire's AT-AT walkers advanced across the snow-covered plains, rebel pilots mounted a desperate defense in both air and ground combat. Although the T-47 airspeeders carried out the primary defense on the ground, X-Wings took to the skies, providing aerial cover against waves of TIE fighters and bombers. X-Wing squadrons were pivotal in the evacuation, engaging the Imperial blockade while escorting the fleeing transports. Their role as escort fighters was essential, holding off the swarming TIEs and ensuring that the transports carrying key rebel leaders and personnel, including Princess Leia Organa and General Reekin, escaped safely into hyperspace. By the time of the Battle of Endor, the X-Wing had solidified its place as the Rebel Alliance's most effective fighter. This final battle was more than just a clash of fleets. It was a showdown for the future of the galaxy. The Rebel fleet, heavily outnumbered, launched a direct assault on the Death Star's construction site, knowing that they had to disable the Imperial fleet and destroy the station before it became fully operational. During the chaotic dogfights in the thick of the battle, X-Wing squadrons fought valiantly against swarms of TIE interceptors and the heavily armored TIE bombers. Rogue Squadron, led by Wedge Antilles, led numerous assault runs on Imperial Star Destroyers, targeting weak points like shield generators and bridge towers. Their proton torpedoes, combined with the firepower of capital ships like Admiral Akbar's flagship, helped to turn the tide against the Imperial fleet. In the final stages of the battle, it was an X-Wing pilot, Wedge Antilles, who delivered the coup de grace, flying into the core of the second Death Star and firing the critical shots that led to its destruction. Alongside Lando Calrissian in the Millennium Falcon, Wedge's precise torpedo strike caused the main reactor to explode, marking the end of the Emperor's reign. From its clandestine development in the Outer Rim to its final victory at Endor, the X-Wing Starfighter embodied the heart of the Rebellion's strategy: precision, versatility, and the defiance of overwhelming odds. Its presence in countless skirmishes, major battles, and daring raids made it the Rebellion's most versatile and effective tool against the Empire's relentless war machine. The X-Wing's legacy extends beyond just its role as a starfighter. It became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of tactical brilliance against oppressive forces. As the galaxy transitioned from war to peace, the X-Wing remained a beacon of the Rebellion's triumphs and the enduring struggle for freedom across the stars. The Battle of Endor marked the death of Emperor Palpatine and the destruction of the second Death Star, a pivotal moment that sent shockwaves across the galaxy. However, the fall of the Emperor did not immediately bring peace. The Galactic Empire, once united under the iron rule of Palpatine, fragmented into warlord factions and splintered remnants. What followed was a period of chaos and conflict as the New Republic emerged from the ashes of the rebellion, determined to restore democracy and stability to the galaxy. Amidst this tumult, the X-Wing Starfighter continued to play a vital role in the defense and expansion of the fledgling New Republic. While the Rebel Alliance had relied on X-Wings as strikecraft in guerrilla warfare, the New Republic inherited these starfighters as part of its standing military. The X-Wing transitioned from being a symbol of rebellion to the backbone of the New Republic's navy, representing the hope and ideals of a galaxy striving to rebuild. In the immediate aftermath of Endor, the New Republic faced a galaxy still rife with Imperial strongholds. The X-Wing squadrons, now formally organized into the New Republic Starfighter Corps, were deployed to eliminate pockets of Imperial resistance that continued to threaten peace. Perhaps the most significant of these campaigns was the Battle of Jakku, a climactic confrontation between the remnants of the Imperial Navy and the New Republic fleet. This battle, fought over the barren desert world of Jakku, symbolized the end of the Galactic Civil War. Imperial forces, desperate and divided, made one last stand against the New Republic, but were ultimately overwhelmed. X-Wing squadrons played a critical role in this decisive victory. As the New Republic fleet engaged Imperial Star Destroyers in orbit, X-Wings were tasked with neutralizing the enemy's TIE fighters and bombers. Rogue Squadron, now a legendary unit under the command of Wedge Antilles, spearheaded the assault on key Imperial capital ships, using their agility and proton torpedoes to destroy shield generators and ion cannons. The battle was fierce, with the Imperial forces unwilling to surrender, but the superior training and coordination of the New Republic Starfighter Corps proved decisive. During the ground assault on Jakku, X-Wings also provided close air support for New Republic troops battling entrenched Imperial forces. With their precision and versatility, X-Wings strafed Imperial positions, taking out armored vehicles and reinforcing the New Republic's advance across the planet's surface. The wreckage of both Imperial and New Republic starships littered the sands of Jakku for decades after, a testament to the battle's intensity. The New Republic's victory at Jakku marked the final collapse of the Imperial remnants as a cohesive military force. With the fall of the Empire, the X-Wing's role evolved. No longer engaged in full-scale galactic warfare, X-Wing squadrons took on peacekeeping duties and defensive operations across the galaxy. As the New Republic sought to establish control over former Imperial territories, X-Wings were dispatched to patrol trade routes, escort diplomatic convoys, and maintain order in lawless sectors. One of the major challenges facing the New Republic during this period was the rise of piracy, particularly in the Outer Rim. As Imperial control disintegrated, lawlessness spread through many regions, and criminal organizations, such as the Hutt cartels and the Crimson Dawn, took advantage of the power vacuum. X-Wing pilots found themselves battling pirate starfighters, smuggler fleets, and rogue warlords who preyed on the New Republic's nascent trade networks. A notable engagement during this period occurred near the planet Ord Mantell, where a fleet of pirate vessels, supported by stolen Imperial ties, ambushed a New Republic convoy carrying vital supplies to the core worlds. A detachment of X-Wings, led by Rogue Squadron, responded to the distress call and launched a counter-offensive. The X-Wings employed advanced hit-and-run tactics, using their shields and superior maneuverability to outflank the pirate forces. The pirates, accustomed to preying on lightly defended transports, were unprepared for the precision and discipline of the New Republic pilots. The X-Wings successfully defended the convoy, crippling the pirate fleet and securing the sector. Another critical mission for X-Wing squadrons came during the dark days of Operation Cinder, a scorched Earth campaign launched by Palpatine's remaining loyalists. Operation Cinder was a devastating plan to destroy key planets using climate-altering satellites, as part of the Emperor's posthumous directive to deny the New Republic any chance of consolidating power. X-Wings were instrumental in countering these attacks, as they engaged Imperial forces over planets targeted by Operation Cinder, such as Naboo, Vardos, and Burnin Khan. On Naboo, a squadron of X-Wings was scrambled to defend the planet from orbiting Imperial forces, attempting to deploy destructive satellites. As the satellites began to generate devastating storms, the X-Wings worked in coordination with planetary defense forces to disable them, while fending off waves of TIE interceptors. Their efforts helped to minimize the damage and save millions of lives, while also dealing a significant blow to the remnants of the Imperial war machine. As the New Republic solidified its hold on the galaxy, the need for modernizing its military became evident. The X-Wing, though reliable, was now an aging design. To maintain technological superiority, Incom Freitech, the successor to Incom Corporation, developed an upgraded version of the Starfighter, the T-70 X-Wing. The T-70 featured numerous advancements over the older T-65 model that had fought at Yavin and Endor. It was faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with more powerful shields and weapons systems. The T-70 also incorporated more advanced astromech integration, allowing pilots to coordinate with their droids in a more seamless fashion, further improving the fighter's versatility. As the galaxy entered a period of relative peace, the X-Wing continued to serve as the primary starfighter of the New Republic Defense Fleet. However, as the First Order, a mysterious faction rising from the remnants of the Empire, began to exert influence in the unknown regions. Tensions mounted. The New Republic, eager to avoid another galaxy-wide conflict, scaled back its military forces, focusing instead on diplomacy and peaceful reconstruction. Yet, many within the Resistance, a breakaway faction led by General Leia Organa, believed that the threat of the First Order could not be ignored. It was during this period of growing tension that the T-70 X-Wing became the preferred starfighter of the Resistance. Resistance pilots, including legendary figures like Poe Dameron, flew these upgraded fighters in secret missions, scouting First Order movements and conducting sabotage operations. The X-Wing's legacy as a tool of rebellion and freedom carried into this new era, as the Resistance once again found itself fighting against a seemingly overwhelming force. The true resurgence of the X-Wing's symbolic and strategic importance came during the conflict with the First Order, culminating in the Battle of Starkiller Base. This superweapon, capable of destroying entire star systems, posed a threat as great as the Empire's Death Stars. When the Resistance discovered the base's location, they launched a desperate assault, relying on their X-Wing squadrons to neutralize the planet-killing weapon. Resistance X-Wings, led by ace pilot Poe Dameron, made daring runs on the surface of Starkiller Base. Their mission was to destroy the thermal oscillator, the key to destabilizing the entire superweapon. The T-70s, equipped with enhanced targeting systems and shields, braved intense ground fire and a fierce contingent of First Order TIE fighters. In one of the most daring assaults of the era, Dameron led a squadron of X-Wings through the narrow trench of the oscillator's structure, delivering the critical shots that ultimately caused Starkiller Base to implode. This victory, much like the Battle of Yavin decades earlier, revitalized the Resistance's fight and gave hope to the galaxy. The X-Wing's role in the era of the New Republic extended far beyond just being a fighter. It became a living testament to the ideals of freedom, resilience, and defiance against tyranny. From the desperate battles against the last vestiges of the Empire to the tense struggles of the Cold War with the First Order, the X-Wing continued to serve as a symbol of hope. In every era, the X-Wing adapted to meet the challenges of its time, from the T-65s of the Rebellion to the T-70s flown by the Resistance. The enduring legacy of the Starfighter reflects its place in galactic history as more than just a tool of war, but as a beacon of the unrelenting fight for justice and peace. The X-Wing story is intertwined with that of the New Republic itself, a story of survival, victory, and the eternal quest to preserve freedom in a galaxy constantly on the brink of darkness. The X-Wing Starfighter, a symbol of the Rebel Alliance, and later the New Republic, evolved significantly throughout its storied history. Each iteration of the X-Wing addressed new tactical needs, advancing technology, and changing galactic contexts. From the original T-65B, which fought at the Battle of Yavin, to the advanced Stealth X and X-83 Twin-Tail, every modification introduced improved capabilities, enhancing the X-Wing's performance in combat. Below is an exhaustive examination of the various X-Wing models, their roles, and the technological advancements that defined each version. The original T-65 series X-Wing was developed by Incom Corporation and became the workhorse of the Rebel Alliance during the Galactic Civil War. The T-65 was famed for its versatility, combining firepower, speed, and survivability in a way that outclassed the Empire's TIE fighters. Over time, the T-65 was further developed into multiple variants that saw action throughout the galaxy. The T-65 X-Wing was the first and most iconic model, designed to strike a balance between agility and durability. Its key features included 4 laser cannons mounted on its wings, proton torpedo launchers, shields, and a hyperdrive. The T-65 could operate independently of larger fleets thanks to its hyperdrive and astromech socket, which allowed for navigation and in-flight repairs. Its S-foils could open into an X-shaped configuration during combat, improving stability and firepower distribution. The T-65A2 X-Wing was a minor upgrade to the original model, featuring improved avionics and targeting systems. This version of the X-Wing was deployed during the early stages of the Galactic Civil War. While it retained most of the original's capabilities, the A2 introduced slightly more powerful engines, giving it a modest speed boost. It also saw refinements in its shields and sensor systems, making it more effective in dogfights. The T-65A3 X-Wing was a later variant designed to extend the Starfighter's operational range, particularly during long reconnaissance missions. This model featured an upgraded hyperdrive with a longer range, enhanced life support systems, and larger fuel tanks, making it ideal for missions where the Starfighter would be far from Allied support for extended periods. To accommodate the longer missions, the T-65A3 also had improved cockpit ergonomics, providing better comfort for pilots on long patrols. Although it was a rare model compared to the T-65B, it filled a niche role for special missions in the latter half of the Galactic Civil War. The T-65AC-4 X-Wing was a limited production variant with enhanced shields and weapon systems. Developed toward the end of the Galactic Civil War, the AC-4 model featured upgraded laser cannons with a higher rate of fire and more efficient energy output, as well as an additional proton torpedo launcher. One of the key enhancements in the T-65AC-4 was its reinforced shields, which allowed it to absorb more damage in battle. This model was particularly effective during skirmishes against heavily fortified Imperial positions or when faced with large numbers of enemy fighters. However, the AC-4's heavier loadout made it slightly less maneuverable than earlier models, making it more suitable for direct assaults rather than hit-and-run tactics. The T-65B X-Wing was perhaps the most well-known and widely used version of the T-65 series, deployed during key battles, such as the Battle of Yavin. The T-65B improved upon the original design with more powerful engines, better shield generators, and enhanced targeting computers. This model became the backbone of the Rebel fleet and saw extensive action throughout the Galactic Civil War. Its ability to engage in dogfights with Imperial TIE fighters while still having the firepower to assault capital ships made it the ideal multi-role starfighter. The T-65B also featured a more advanced astromech interface, allowing better coordination between the pilot and the droid in combat situations. Many T-65Bs were field-modified by Rebel mechanics, who often tailored individual starfighters to the needs of their pilots. The T-65BR, also known as the Recon X, was a reconnaissance variant of the X-Wing designed for long-range scouting missions. Unlike other models, the T-65BR traded most of its offensive weaponry for advanced sensor and communication systems, which allowed it to gather intelligence deep within enemy territory. The proton torpedo launchers were replaced with additional sensor equipment, and the laser cannons were reduced to 2, prioritizing stealth and information gathering over combat. The T-65BR's main role was to scout enemy fleets, track supply lines, and locate hidden Imperial bases. While it retained its shields and basic combat capability, it was not intended for direct engagement. Its longer-range sensors and enhanced stealth systems made it an invaluable tool for Rebel intelligence operations. The T-65C-A2 X-Wing was an upgraded version of the T-65B, with improvements to its power distribution system, making it more energy efficient. This allowed for greater flexibility in diverting power between engines, shields, and weapons during combat, giving pilots more tactical options. The CA-2 also introduced a more advanced targeting computer that could better track enemy starfighters and ground targets. This made the CA-2 particularly effective in mixed-role missions where space superiority, ground attack, and fleet escort were required. It was widely used by the New Republic during the early years following the fall of the Empire. The T-65D-A1 X-Wing introduced a major technological leap by replacing the traditional astromech droid with an integrated droid brain. This was a controversial decision, as many pilots were accustomed to working with their astromech droids. However, the droid brain allowed for more efficient systems management and faster responses in combat. While this model boasted impressive technical advancements, it was met with mixed reviews from pilots who missed the familiarity and problem-solving abilities of their astromech companions. The T-65DA1 was ultimately not widely adopted, and most squadrons preferred to stick with traditional astromech-equipped X-Wings. The T-65 Advanced X-Wing was a prototype designed to test new technology for potential future models. It featured experimental shields, enhanced engines, and more powerful laser cannons. While it never saw full production, many of the systems developed for the T-65 Advanced were later incorporated into the XJ series and other advanced starfighters. The TX-65 Trainer X was a specialized version of the X-Wing designed for training new pilots. It featured dual-control cockpits, allowing an instructor to take over flight controls if necessary. The Trainer X was not equipped with heavy armaments, but retained basic shields and flight capabilities, allowing new recruits to safely learn the ropes of piloting an X-Wing in non-combat environments. The Tandem X-Wing was an experimental two-seater X-Wing designed for special missions that required both a pilot and a dedicated gunner or sensor operator. While it retained the standard X-Wing armament, the second cockpit allowed the additional crew member to handle targeting, sensor operations, or even repairs mid-flight. This variant was produced in small numbers and typically reserved for reconnaissance or special operations missions. The XJ series marked a significant evolution in X-Wing technology, emerging after the establishment of the New Republic. Designed to compete with the increasingly advanced starfighters used by Imperial remnants and new threats like the Yuuzhan Vong, the XJ series offered more firepower, enhanced shields, and better performance across all parameters. It was the next generation of X-Wing that allowed the New Republic and later the Galactic Alliance to maintain starfighter superiority. The XJ X-Wing, also referred to as the XJ class, was a major improvement over the original T-65. It featured better engines, stronger shields, and an upgraded hyperdrive system, allowing for longer-range missions. The XJ's laser cannons were more powerful, and its proton torpedo capacity was doubled, making it more capable of dealing with capital ships and heavily armored targets. The XJ X-Wing was also equipped with an advanced astromech interface, allowing the droid to take on more control over systems management, freeing the pilot to focus on combat tactics. This series was widely used during the Yuuzhan Vong War, where it proved to be a formidable opponent against the extragalactic invaders' organic technology. The XJ-3 X-Wing was an updated version of the XJ series, featuring even more advanced shields and enhanced hull plating to withstand the brutal onslaughts from the Yuuzhan Vong. The XJ-3's targeting systems were optimized for use against the Vong's living starships, which were resistant to conventional targeting computers. In addition to its upgraded defenses, the XJ-3 was slightly faster than the XJ, making it more agile in dogfights. This model also included an improved life support system, allowing pilots to endure longer missions in harsh environments. It became the primary starfighter of the Jedi Order during the latter stages of the war. The XJ-5 Chase X was a specialized variant of the XJ series designed for high-speed pursuits and interceptions. With more powerful engines and a stripped-down frame to reduce weight, the Chase X was one of the fastest starfighters of its time. However, this speed came at the cost of reduced armor and shield strength. The Chase X was primarily deployed in situations where speed was of the essence, such as intercepting enemy fighters or capturing fleeing targets. Its minimal defensive systems meant it had to rely on its speed to avoid enemy fire, rather than tanking damage like other X-Wing variants. The XJ-6 X-Wing was another refinement of the XJ series, featuring more sophisticated avionics and sensor systems. Its hyperdrive was faster and more reliable, allowing for rapid response deployments across greater distances. The XJ-6 also had improved weapons control systems, allowing for more precise fire coordination during large fleet engagements. This variant was used by both the New Republic and the Galactic Alliance, particularly in the years following the Yuuzhan Vong War. Its balance of firepower, speed, and survivability made it a favorite among elite pilots. The XJ-7 X-Wing was the final iteration of the XJ series before the introduction of more radical designs, such as the Stealth X and X-83 Twin-Tail. It featured the most advanced systems of the XJ line, including cutting-edge shields, laser cannons, and torpedo launchers. The XJ-7 also incorporated next-generation astromech integration, allowing for even more seamless coordination between pilot and droid. One of the key upgrades in the XJ-7 was its ability to carry more varied payloads, including anti-capital ship ordnance and specialized ion weaponry for disabling enemy vessels. This made the XJ-7 an ideal multi-role starfighter capable of excelling in any combat scenario. Beyond the T-65 and XJ series, several specialized X-Wing models were developed for specific missions or technological experiments. These starfighters pushed the boundaries of what the X-Wing platform could achieve, adapting to the evolving threats faced by the New Republic, the Galactic Alliance, and the Jedi Order. The Stealth X was a highly classified variant of the X-Wing used exclusively by the Jedi Order. It was designed for covert operations, featuring advanced stealth technology, that rendered it nearly invisible to sensors and tracking systems. The hull of the Stealth X was coated in a special material that absorbed sensor signals, while its engines were modified to minimize emissions, allowing it to approach targets undetected. In combat, the Stealth X was slightly less durable than the XJ series due to the weight constraints imposed by the stealth systems. However, its ability to slip behind enemy lines and strike key targets made it a crucial asset during the latter years of the Yuuzhan Vong War and beyond. Jedi pilots, including Luke Skywalker, often used the Stealth X for missions requiring secrecy and precision strikes. The X-83 Twin-Tail was a successor to the X-Wing developed during the reign of the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances, Galactic Alliance. It represented a major departure from the traditional X-Wing design, featuring twin tails that gave the Starfighter increased maneuverability and a more streamlined silhouette. The X-83 was faster, more agile, and more heavily armed than its predecessors. It retained the signature S-foils, but its armament was expanded to include more powerful laser cannons and a larger complement of proton torpedoes. The X-83 also featured advanced deflector shields and a state-of-the-art sensor suite, making it one of the most formidable starfighters of its era. From the original T-65 that fought the Empire to the advanced Stealth X and X-83 Twin-Tail, the X-Wing has evolved alongside the galaxy itself. Each variant reflects the changing needs of its time, whether battling Imperial Star Destroyers, scouting enemy fleets, or engaging in high-speed chases through space. The X-Wing's adaptability and enduring design have cemented its place as one of the most iconic and reliable starfighters in galactic history, beloved by pilots and feared by enemies across every era.